you need to make sure that you're well diversified in terms of the asset class that you're choosing. There's equities, there's property, there's, commodities, there's all these different asset classes that you can choose from.
Hi, friend, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for honoring my invitation and come to join to have this discussion around your journey in investments, as well as giving us hints or basics of ETFs, right?
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, I'm so honored. I mean, it's actually quite a privilege to have a friend whom you can call and talk about investments, especially in the Black culture, where money talks is a taboo. So I'm kind of happy with the revolution that is coming through, or the evolution rather, of us getting comfortable with talking about things like this.
I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Me too. So first of all, I just want you to introduce yourself, just so people who are listening can just get a good overview of who they're talking to.
Okay, cool. So I'm Keletso Malepe, but I prefer being called Keletso because that's what my mother calls me. So I'm Keletso. I met Zwanda in adverts. So we both started adverts, and that's how we met at Jubilee Hall, because we're staying there in the same accommodation. I am currently working for a tech company, like a consumer electronics company. I'm part of a sustainability team. So we do ESG reportings and ESG sustainalytics. So that's what I do. I'm currently based in Ireland at the moment. But yeah, I think that's more about me, I guess.
Okay. No, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think from the intro on how me and you relate, you kind of omitted something. I mean, we come a long way, friend. I just want you to recall this side of the story. Remember the time where we used to talk about, our unit trusts, and then we evolved to talking about stocks, and from checking them every day and having to move to where we are today. Like, guys, like it's been quite a journey. Yeah. So and then you get to a point where you were invited by Easy Equities to actually participate on webinars. And I'm like, yes, that's my girl. So friend, first question from someone who gets posted on Easy Equities page: how did you came about being an investment enthusiast? Like what was the story for you?
Okay, so I think let me just backtrack a bit. So I started off my investment journey in I think it was around 2017. And when I started off with unit trust through one of the investment platforms in South Africa. You and I started off with unit trust together. Yeah, same one. So I started off with unit trust, and for me, the way I discovered unit trust was basically through my employer at that time. I was doing an internship. I was very young, but very, very eager to learn about like investment and how people manage their money. So I asked, like, I used to travel a lot with my boss at that time. So I would ask him, how are you managing your money? How is it that, you were able to have a hang over things and have your money and be able to sort of like have your kids have trust funds and be able to buy property? Because he used to tell me a lot about how he's buying property, how he's investing. And I just had to ask, how are you doing it? Then he told me about unit trust. And he told me about the specific platform or investment management company that I could try out. And that's how I started. Then through my own research, that's when I then came across all these other stockbrokers, like the likes of Easy Equities and others. And I just, once you get started with investing and you just go down this rabbit hole and you want to learn and you're like, okay, so this is what people are doing to manage their money. This is how people manage to actually create, generational wealth, and manage to actually create a better future for themselves and also the ones that come after them. So that's how I started. And eventually I would obviously tell people about it. Like I'll post a lot about it on my WhatsApp statuses, and whosoever was interested, I would then tell them like how to go about it. Then I joined Twitter at some point, and I think it was around about this year, I think late last year, when I came across Fin Twitter, and I realized that there's a whole community out there that's actually sharing free information and sharing their investment journey with one another and encouraging each other and providing guidance wherever is needed. And so I also then started like writing Twitter threads about ETFs, because I felt like there wasn't much information on Twitter about ETFs specifically from the South African context. There was a lot about individual stocks and stuff like that. So I then started writing threads about ETFs and why I like ETFs and what I've learned about ETFs and so forth. And that's how eventually Easy Equities then ended up inviting me to their webinars, because they probably realized that I talk a lot about ETFs on the timeline, and that's how it happened.
It's really great, friend. And I like your highlights there. It's having a community from community at work, where you started talking to your boss about what they're doing and figuring out what works for you. And the information is out there, like ask if you don't understand, ask if you want to know more, because there's probably people who are within your reach who actually know which you're struggling with. So you mentioned, friend, that you started with unit trust and then later become an ETF enthusiast, and started writing threads about ETFs. I mean, there's so many platforms, or let me say investment vehicles, right? Like you mentioned, unit trust, there's properties. There's why ETFs? What makes ETFs for you? Like, what makes you so passionate about ETFs?
So I like both ETFs and individual stocks. But the reason why I specifically like ETFs a lot more is because they just give you that diversity. They are well diversified in their own ways. So you're able to invest in different companies through just, one transaction. So you can just invest in one ETF, but under that one ETF, you have exposure to so many different companies, so many different asset classes as well. So that's why I like ETFs. But outside of that, I also like the fact that, there's the tax-free savings account options that South Africans have. So I'm trying to take advantage of that tax-free savings account opportunity, where I'm able to basically invest 36,000 on an annual basis. And I think for your lifetime contribution is kept at 500,000 rands. I stand to be corrected, but I think that's the latest stats at the moment. So within the tax-free savings account, you're only allowed to invest in ETFs. And so the reason why I started, looking a lot more into ETFs is so that when I invest in these ETFs through my tax-free savings account, I will then be able to know fully well, like, which ETFs actually match with my investment strategy, which ETFs do I stand to probably gain a lot more from, and what kind of exposure do these different ETFs offer me. So it was, the fact that they're well diversified, the low cost as well that comes with ETFs, and the fact that I don't have to sit down and try and analyze graphs and try and, with individual stocks, it's just a lot that one has to take into account. There's fundamental analysis, there's technical analysis, and all of those things that you have to take into account when choosing an individual stock. Meanwhile, with ETFs, it's basically there is this investment aspect in the background who did all the research for you and chose all these different companies for you. And all you have to do is just make sure that you choose this ETF that offer you the kind of investment that you were looking for, the investment opportunity you were looking for. And the strategy of it basically fits with your overall portfolio. So it's the perfect thing. Like, I feel like just the creation of tax-free savings account and the fact that you have ETFs, I don't think it can ever get better than that for individual investors, or retail investors, as we are called.
Yes, you know what, Brain, you're really spot on. You're really spot on. And I think from my side, that's what I liked about ETFs. It's not too volatile. and
Yeah.
good enough growth. So I was
That's
happy about that. So as you mentioned that ETFs are diversified, right, friend? Do you still need to diversify your ETFs? I mean, now I bought one, let's say S&P 500. Do I still need to diversify my ETFs?
Yeah, you still need to diversify your ETFs. So, and the reason why I'm saying that, so there's something called there's diversified and there's also diversified. Some people call it diversified. So with diversifying, it's basically a way of spreading your investment across different asset classes or sectors or geographies and countries and so forth. Meanwhile, with diversification is sort of like over diversification into a specific, sector or a specific asset classes. So with ETFs, it's the same thing. So you have to make sure that when you're picking your ETFs, you do not focus on just the same asset class or the same sector or the same geography. So they offer you need to make sure that you're well diversified enough in terms of the asset class that you're choosing. If you choose equity, there's property, there's commodities, there's all these different asset classes that you can choose from. Then you also need to make sure that you are well diversified in terms of location. You have ETFs that are focused on domestic ETFs that are just focused in South Africa. There are ETFs that are focused on the whole world. There are ETFs that are focused on the European region, the Eurozone. There are ETFs that are focused on China. There are ETFs that are focused on the US side. So you need to be well diversified in the sense that you don't just invest in one specific country or one specific region. You invest in different regions, you invest in different asset classes, like invest in different sectors, for instance. It wouldn't, for me personally, it wouldn't make sense to like invest, say for instance, you're somebody who loves mining, right? It wouldn't make sense for you to just go out there and just buy in ETFs that are just focused on mining only. You need to be well diversified, invest in the mining sector, but also invest in the tech sector, invest in all these different sectors that you think they stand to basically make you money, or they stand to perform well in the coming future and so forth. So yeah, you need to be well diversified. And also because like when you're well diversified, you're basically reducing your risk and increasing your rewards. Because if you focus on one sector and it so happens that say you focus on the mining sector and the mining sector goes through a period where they're just doing really, 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 really horrible, they're not performing really, really well, then your whole portfolio is just going to go down.
Yes.
But when you focus on other sectors as well, so if you have the mining sector and the tech sector, when one goes down and the other goes up, there's a balance. They balance each other out. So you've reduced your risk in a sense, and you've increased your reward in a way. But if you're over diversified, then it's the other way around. You increase your risk and you reduce the rewards that you stand to gain from ETFs. So definitely,
yeah. Thank you for that, friend. I like your explanation in diversification.